Okay, RMD, I'm so happy to have you here. I know that we've been having conversations, but we've never really sat to talk about all of the things that I want to ask you and all of the things that I know people want to know.
Please,
So,
fire away.
yeah. So I know that this is about Recall for Men, and there's really no better person to, tell us about what it is that we need to know. What do I mean? So I know that the African man is generally different from the regular man. Why do I say that? Because he's led by community and responsibility. And I was saying, I remember saying that to a few people and saying, I remember when I was growing up, and even though I have like 4 older siblings, I deferred to my older brothers for most things, for leadership, for direction, for opinion, for anything, and my brother was like, wow, he was like my guide. And I know that when I remember that my mom didn't really used to place responsibilities on them until they got to a certain age. And so I'm wondering, what is that gap? So for you, at what point did you realize that, okay, responsibility is something that I have to live up to? Or were you always just accountable? Or
I was. Perhaps my case might be a little bit different because I was an only child of my mom.
Wow.
And so her entire life I was at the core of her being. I grew up in a polygamous home.
Right.
My father had 5 wives at the height of his money. And so, but I was an only child of my mother. And so my mother brought me up on the premise of remember whose child you are. And so whether or not she was somebody of note, she was just a trader in the market. But her generation, they held on to family values and name or legacy. For them, the legacy is the name. So when you drop your name and say your name is X, there is a value attached to X. And so if the owners of the value of X value X, if you are a product of X, you then make sure that you uphold that value in every of your conduct. That was why it held true that it took a village to raise a child in that time. I don't know if it is still holding true now because we are all finding ourselves in urban centers where we erect walls that divide, as opposed to living in a community. That community you alluded to, that drives the average African man, so to speak. It's still there, but when you're doing Recall for Men, the pressures and the settings and the environment, they're slightly altered and skewed and different from what traditional African men that you referred to earlier I used to. I'm sorry if I'm.
It's fine.
But we need to have have perspective and have a precedent upon which we are working. It's one of the things that you have to contend with. Yeah, But to say that you can no longer be respected because of your name, I don't think we've lost it all. We have lost quite a bit, but we haven't lost it all, because I believe that when I said, my mother used to say to me, remember whose child you are, it had nothing to do with money. That's why I said she was just a poor trader, but she felt that she was respectable because she, in her words, she's like, I haven't killed anybody's child. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a thief. In the community, I do my bit, and I contribute to the commonwealth of everybody, or I contribute to our commonwealth. So yes, there are things that wanting to blow and everything, it's just a new name. It's just a new acquisition for wanting to succeed. It's the same thing. The average African man has always wanted to be successful in whatever he does, either as a farmer or whatever. After all, like in the movies where we work, it is always about getting the girl.
Yeah, we're getting there. You're preempting me. I'm still waiting.
It is always about getting the girl. It is always about making your mother proud or your father proud. I started with my mom because my values were centered around what she was teaching me. Remember whose child you are. You must greet people. You must be upstanding. You cannot steal.
How have those things helped you?
What I am today is a direct manifestation of how my mother brought me up. To be respectable, to be sensitive, to be gender friendly, to be sensitive to my environment, to be considerate. I got a lot of love, and so that is the only thing that I know how to dispense. That is my starting point. I can't dispense hate from starters. No, I am a product of love, and then I gravitated towards understanding what love really means. It is at the core of creation.
Yeah.
Because you cannot create something or somebody, and the thing or the person turns around and begins to fight you, and you still have a forgiving spirit, because what you see is not his rebellion, but his creation as a part of you.
Yeah.
So from get-go, you're already forgiven, as long as you turn around to always say, I acknowledge that you are my father. Come on, I will err. I can be a prodigal sometimes, but the prodigal, that's the beauty of the prodigal. He always comes back. So that's what for me, that's what it is. There is a desire to be a better person. If for some people it is by any means necessary. But for some of us, it is not by any means necessary, because, like they say, the curve, the morality curve, it can be very funny. But the thing is, if you stick with it, if you stay with it, that is what later on, that's what defines you. That is where all your values and everything, that is where they all converge. And so at that point of convergence is what becomes your legacy. When a name like YBB, for instance, let's use the YBB name. When a name like YBB is mentioned, what does it portend, or what comes to your mind immediately? So when you mention integrity or beauty or whatever, you will find that for every name, for everything you mention, it unlocks further values.
Yeah.
So when you say beauty, it speaks of a preparation to be beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Or it speaks of a gift from heaven or whatever. But like a garden, it has to be tended. It has to be nurtured to stay beautiful. So if I say YBB, she's beautiful, it speaks of a continuous nurturing of a gift from God to stay like this. It can speak immediately of discipline with food. She eats healthy, she exercises and all that. So what I'm saying is, every word you mention, integrity, it unlocks further things. Oh, she's morally upright, it unlocks further things. So for me, for instance, to just trace back to your earlier question, I was brought up to understand responsibility from very early on by my mom, because, like I said, mine is a bit special because as an only child, at age 10 I could cook, and she wanted me to be everything that she would find in a female child, and she wanted me to be everything she would find in a male child. And so she operated from a premise of my one kernel or my one seed would be more than somebody who has 20. And so she drilled it into my skull that, look, she says to me, it's sweeter in pidgin English, she will say, person when born one picking an eye, they take talk to her. Do you understand? Like, you are my child. If I look at you, you should understand what I'm saying. I don't have to open my mouth to say anything to you. And so that's what shaped me.
That's amazing.
And today, when I teach, I always say, I still hear her voice in my head. I'm 60 this year. She's been dead for 21 years. Wow. But my mom was my teacher. Yeah. She was my moral code. She was my everything. My father was there, symbol of authority. You don't mess with this one. He was, his own expression of love was different. Oh, I paid your school fees, give me grades.
But which one was, definitely from what you're saying, which one was more impactful?
My mom, because she also was the one who took my father's values and made sure they were delivered to me. My father didn't have to sit down with me until I finished my HSC, for instance, and he bought a beer. And so, I had passed my HSC and I was going to the university. He had just been waiting for me to get into the university. And the minute I got my 3 papers in my HSC, he bought me a beer and we sat down and we drank beer and he says, look, you are going to university now. Women need to finish. And then we talked and everything. And then I would say, okay, I want to go out now. He will give me his car keys, come back by 7. So his own expression of love was just different. But his wife knew the values that he wanted in his child, because after all, the height of discipline, we lived in that community. We had tenants. My grandmother lived with us. My auntie, my father's elder sister, lived with us. So one big family with tenants. So he was a symbol of authority. If a child was erring, even a tenant's child was erring, I go report you to landlord, that's it. You go cold, because my father can whip you at the back of your of your palm on the same spot for 20 times, he won't miss it. Ooh. Yeah, so he was that kind of person. So my mother will say to me, don't mess, I will tell your father. So my father never, I think he beat me once because I fought with my elder sister, and he beat me with a broom until everyone was broken in my body. Yeah. So that's the kind of upbringing that I had. So for me, responsibility has always been the thing, because it was all couched in one sentence. Remember whose child you are. Who is Damijo? Poor MPA worker. And my mother was just a trader, illiterate.
Wow.
So, but here I am today, right? Built some name for the family. And so what do I pass on to my children? It's the same thing. I say to them what my mom says to me. Remember whose child you are. You can't do certain things. It's the same thing I say to my workers. I'm sorry, you're working for me. If you're working for somebody else, maybe it's okay. But they will say it's RMD's driver or RMD's worker. Please, I beg you. This name is all I have. So I don't see how different that is. It doesn't have to be money that unravels when you call the name. It could stand for a lot more things. And so if you can come up with the first good one, you will just find that this is just a name for the storehouse of values. Oyibo will say brand. Okay? Yeah. But once you can say it is a brand, then what that bespeaks of is that it's a storehouse.
Yeah.
And when you unravel or you uncock it, you just keep seeing all the things that make it a brand.
Amazing. So at what point did you know what you were going to do? At what point were you able to make a choice between so many giftings and so many abilities and so many skills?
For me, again, I was lucky. I was a child of television. I was fascinated by that box. I played a lot. You know how kids will play. So again, I grew up in Warri. Now, when you look back, the good thing about when we grew up, we didn't know we were poor. Yeah. I didn't know I was poor. It didn't occur to me at any point in my entire life that I was poor or that my parents were poor. It didn't. And this is the reason why. Because my mother will say to me again, what I cannot afford for you, you don't need. And so I was happy. I mean, we would play around the entire street. If I say this all the time. If Mama Rich, they call her Mama Rich. If my mom is coming back from the market, she walks. She walks to the market. It takes taxi to our street junction, and she walks in. If my mom gets to my street at, say, 5:30, she won't get home until like 7.
She's greeting everybody?
Everybody. She's branching one place. I don't know whether she was overcompensating for having just one child, because every child loved my mom. My mom loved children, but she just couldn't get more. My grandmother, I remember, would come home, would come to visit, and would say, Mofe, open the road now. And then I would look at my mom like, what roads did I block? And it was later on, all those, the kind of pressure. So I don't know how I would have grown up if for instance I thought I was poor or anything. I just loved life. We were happy. We were content in what we had. And so that was how we grew up. And I played a lot. And when I discovered television, I just want to be one of those on television. And so when it was time to go to the university, I chose theater.
Wow.
My father didn't care. My mother didn't really know what theater was. But my uncle, who cared more, wanted me to be a lawyer. Of course, her sister understood what lawyer was. And so we had, it was like an Uncle London, we call him Uncle London. And we were having this conversation, and we had this conversation for almost an hour. And it was, I'm very animated when I argue. And he loved me like his own child. We argued, and after a while, he turned to my mom and said, you see, a lawyer be this, lawyer, you know. But this theater, when you want to read, to make him go read theater. Because he was the one who was going to take me to school. And when he left, my mom was crying. I said, Mofe, oh, why now? What do you want? I said, Mama, don't worry. You'll see me for television.
Wow.
And that was it. So call it me prophesying into my life. And at every time where I begin, my life revolves and rotates and revolves. It comes back to television. And after a while, I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm not fighting it. I will stay here. So everything, communication, my going to study law, ending up in intellectual property and everything is all about television. Call it television has migrated off the wall, gotten into our palm. It's all television. Any device is all television. Once there is visual and there is sound, it's television.
How did you hone your skills?
I went to school and like I said, I loved it. It's what I always wanted to do. I went and studied theater. I loved acting, but I didn't major in acting. I majored in dramatic theory and criticism because at the time, people felt that actors were intellectually lazy. And so I just thought, let me just tell them how brilliant I am.
Fantastic. So you went the extra mile just to prove a point.
Yes. I used to just go into other departments to just take courses and pass them and give an A and just walk away. So I'm glad that I stayed with what I love. I'm glad I went into law, finally, for my mom to have some rest. Fortunately, she didn't see me get called to the bar before she passed. I was called in 2005 and she passed in 99. Wow. But I had gotten into Unilag before she passed, studying law. So yeah, that's my story.
Okay, so now this is going to be, I'm going to switch things up a little. So I remember that the first, of course, I remember RMD on TV. And he had this presence, this larger than life presence while acting. So I always wondered, is this person like this in real life? Is this like, an act? Is this something, what is this? And I remember the first day that I actually saw you. And I realized that it is actually a magnetic presence.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it is. So
it's recording, Abi? Okay.
So here's what it is.
All right.
At what point, or what did you have to do? Did you do anything extra? Did you just notice that people reacted to you a certain way? And what did that do for you?
I think it's from the stage. I'm just trying to answer your question as honestly as I can because I know that if I'm on stage, people get drawn to me. And I love it. And the more I studied it, I found, I've studied a lot of people who have a lot of magnetic stage presence. I read sometime about this New York Times reporter, or this New York Times reporter who was watching Michael Jackson perform. And he said at the end of a 2-hour concert, he was breathless, the reporter, not Michael Jackson. And that he discovered that he was not breathing properly watching Michael Jackson. Same thing happened to me. I was watching Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman. And I sat in the theater in London, forgotten this, in Kingsway Road area. I sat on the theater at the edge of my seat. And when the film was done, I was sitting like this on the edge of my seat. I had grabbed my seat, I was sweating, and I turned and looked at my friend and said, I bet everything in my life he will win an Oscar for this acting. Because for me as a performer, that was it. He was away, he was gone. So I remember one of the best compliments that I had been paid on stage was by my director. we were doing a play called Obaseki at the law school. And as an actor, sometimes you go blank. So I was on stage delivering my lines, and suddenly I went blank. My lines were gone. I waited for the cue. I didn't hear any cue.
Oh, wow.
And then from nowhere, I heard my director's voice like, RMD, don't forget line. RMD, don't forget line. But I looked at the audience, everybody was quiet. And I looked at the audience, so I first walked to the right of the stage, staring into the audience. I was like, God, give me this line. And I walked to the other side of the stage and I went center stage and I paused. I kept staring. The whole went up in applause.
Wow.
They were just clapping. And I heard my director say, actor! So I came off, and then the lines came back, and I did like this. I told the audience to calm down, and then I started again. Now, what that does for you as an actor is that you have everybody. Here's the thing that some of the younger actors don't know who don't study it. If I pay money to come to a theater, it's because I want to be entertained.
Yes.
So I deliberately leave all my problems at home, or deliberately submit to you, the performer, take me on this journey. When the performer doesn't take you on the journey, you get distracted and you start holding conversation with who you're with. But if the performer can take you on a journey, then you are satisfied. I don't take that lightly. That is the core of my being, and that is the validation that I need from my audience. So it is my work to make sure that every time they encounter me, they have to see the truth in whatever thing I'm selling.
That's so powerful, though.
Yeah, so that is what I also try to teach. Teaching acting is not about just methods. It's about helping the actor to find purpose, which is what life is.
Yeah.
You find purpose, then you come from a place of truth.
Yeah.
If there is truth, then nothing else matters, because the eye actually sees beyond the physical. It sees the soul.
Yeah.
And I tell my students every time that this camera that you see, this lens, it sees your soul. Because your eyes are the windows to your soul. And so sometimes you see they say, camera catch me. If you see the way you do it, camera catch up. It is because the camera is not just seeing his face, he's seeing his inner being. Yeah. So when you find purpose for living, which is true of everything, why are you doing Recall for Men? You're a woman. Why do you care so much about how men in between 20 and 35 conduct their affairs, or how they can become better people? Why do you care? Why do I care about an audience that has already paid? Because it is my responsibility to make sure that what they paid for, they can get in value. Because, again, let me close with this. I just finished a film that became some kind of a burden to me, because I had been carrying it for 13 months. That's probably one of the longest films you will ever hear in Nollywood. From prepping for the film to shooting it. So I only discharged this burden, or this whole film, on Sunday. When we finished, the director broke down and he started crying. Because a younger person, he's just in his 30s. So he held me and he said, Papa, why did you do it? Why did you do it for me? Why did you agree to do it? You don't know me, I'm a first-time director. It's you. So I said, because I love what I do. It's not the money, because if you share the money into every one month, you won't buy Ribena for your child. So I said, it's because I love what I do, and I really do have a responsibility to the people who are stuck on me, trying to follow me on a journey. And so every time I have a chance to take them on a journey, how can I, in all honesty, let them down?
Wow, thank you so much for that. There's no way I can let you go without asking this question. RMD is the certified ladies' man. Certified. Stamp on it.
Now you tell me.
Stamp on it. Now, so when we started this conversation, you were saying something about a guy wants to be something for a woman. How, obviously we know you're married, you've been married for a while. There are two questions in here. How did you deal with loss the first time? So I know that the very first time that you were married, she passed. What was that like for you? What was that experience like for you? Because, those are things that we don't really see.
We can spend the entire day talking about it. Loss is when you lose somebody, it's not something that anybody, you can even begin to describe to somebody. Over the weekend, a friend of mine who was like a college father to me had lost his wife, and I didn't know. They came for Christmas, and the wife passed. So he was wondering why I hadn't called him. And so I saw his call, and I was wondering. So I called him back, and he said, Mofe, my wife passed though, and I haven't heard from you. I said, what? And he started crying and everything. He's older than me. And we started talking, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. So I started ministering to him. I started ministering. He said, this is what I was waiting for, because you had gone through it. This is what I was. So I believe you. I will do what you are saying I should do, or I am glad that I'm speaking to you finally. So I said, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. So I spoke to him, he cried, I cried, we cried.
That's amazing hearing that though.
Oh yeah, I'm not shy. I've held back tears too many times in here. I don't think it's effeminate to cry. No, my mother didn't bring me up like that at all.
That's so important.
I cry. I'm a sucker for good films. I cry watching films. So,
amazing.
so, I spoke to him, and it's such a personal thing. It is such a personal thing. I remember, let me wrap up with this, because I remember I kept saying to people when they come to me that there were times when I just wanted to be alone. And I just kept saying to them, I want to mourn. I just want to mourn. Leave you, thank you, but I really just want to be alone. They don't get it. They think they need to be around you. It's good, but they can't be with you forever. So they try. But about 1 o'clock they will go home, Abi. 1 a.m. they will go, Abi. You are still finally alone, but you wanted to be alone long before, like maybe like even 8 p.m. So because it is a journey that you must start it and finish it. Yes. I mean, you will say things like, I don't want to marry again because you have fears. What if you marry and she dies? Then you become some wife killer or something. Everything comes to you. Everything. Oh, in this world, everything is about killing somebody for money, right? No wonder he's a good actor. He replaces people with their lives. It took me 4 years to come to terms with, like, okay, I'm ready. So some people will tell you, in fact, pastors were telling me then to marry quickly. That it was easier, but I needed to just be ready on my own. It's a thing that you can't teach somebody else on how to cope. But I know that the only thing I had was God. You will break down, and you will almost lose your faith. You'll find it. You'll come to terms, and you'll move.
Dealing with lost that, but then the other question, which I didn't get to,
relationship,
is ladies' man. So every guy now wants to be a ladies' man.
I still ignore it. I don't deal with it.
You don't?
I don't. Because if you do, then you get lost. Then you will, every time you step up, you are trying to be a ladies' man. No.
So how did it happen?
I don't know. I don't deal with it. I don't deal with my fame. I don't deal with being a ladies' man or anything. I don't do labels.
It's not anything you do intentionally?
No. I'm an actor. When I left Warri to come to Lagos, I wanted to just be on what? Television.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what it would give to me. If I thought it was going to put a lot of money on my table, I was wrong. If I thought it was going to put a lot of women on my plate, I was wrong. Because I now found out that it was not for money. It was not for women. But it was for a personal craving and satisfaction. It was finding purpose.
Within yourself?
Within myself. That with being an actor, I can do everything that I want to do.
Amazing.
Yes, I can touch people, I can reach people, I can teach, and I have been teaching. I can influence, and I have been influencing. I can make good, and I have been making good. I can do bad. I can't be doing bad. So it's a personal thing. It is finding purpose. I did a post yesterday and I said, finding the balance between work, okay, and living, you know, and being happy is what true happiness really is. Because when I work now, I don't see it as work that drains you. Yes, there are days, occasions that it drains you, but not enough to want you to want to give up. Yes. So for me, I don't. It's good when you walk into a place and women are screaming, right? But I don't. That is not what I ride on. Because at the end of the day, when I say RMD, is it the women you see? What do you see?
I see excellence, and I see, I see somebody who is just committed and true, because through the years.
So to answer your question of how I deal with the women or being a ladies' man, is that it doesn't count. If you see it, if you see the women all first, then I've taken the wrong side of it. What for me counts is how true am I to what I am said, to what people refer me as. If they say I'm an actor, am I true to being an actor? If I get the job of being an actor,
will you deliver?
Will I deliver? What do I bring to the table?
Exactly.
So for me, that is what is important. I don't walk with a chip on my shoulder. That is why I can stop anywhere. My people know I will buy granules.
You be yourself.
Yes, they say you don't know how to be a star. I say, leave me. Where I come from, there are still people who will say, Rishi, bend your head and knock me on my head. Because that is just how we are. I took my staff somewhere yesterday. I have a senior brother there who, it's not my blood brother.
Yeah,
but he's
you're African, he's your brother.
Once you're from Warrior and you're older than me, you're my brother. You're my senior brother. And when you say, Richard, sit down, you sit. This is how I call myself, Richard. Sit down, and you sit down. Because that's how we are. Let me close like this. I have he's late now. I have a cousin, he had gone to a university to see somebody, and unfortunately for him, the girl had my poster by her bedside.
Oh, wow.
So my cousin sits down, looks at it, and starts to laugh. And the girl was like, why are you laughing? He says, no, my little cousin is on your wall. So the girl looked at him and said, little cousin, you are feeling. He was so offended.
He took you there?
No. He left Ekoma.
Wow.
And he drove straight to my house. When he got to my house, I wasn't there. So my wife was there. My wife had given him drink. So when I came, I saw Henny King on the floor and he was drinking. I said, Richard, come here. So I said, bro, sorry. So I was you, they come now. He said, bend down. And we call it conk. So he
conked your head?
He conked my head. So I said, bro, what did I do? I don't know, so you, they come now. He said, no. I said, so what did I do? He said, now I go see person for Ekoma. I see your picture for wall. And he thought you my children brother, the girl decided to feel you and they feel. He wanted to knock me on my head. I said, bro, but I'm not dating. You know? So that's how it is.
Oh, this is so interesting. Thank you so much. Final question. This is the
final.
Yes, one final question. And that is, you're turning 60.
Yes.
Whew, okay, so all the way now, looking from what you know, looking back, what would you have told your younger self?
Don't delay anything. Be all you can be. Live in the moment, and live well. I mean, I look back. I've tried. I love the life I've lived.
Yeah.
37 years post graduation, and I don't feel like I'm 60.
Yeah.
All right, but the reason why this being 60 is very significant to me, I've said it a few places, is because both my parents never made 60.
Wow.
So this for me is very significant. I mean, there will be 70, there will be 80,
yes.
and God helping me, there will be 90,
Amen.
and all of that. But this is very important to me. And so I'm looking forward to it, not so much as popping all the champagne in the world and doing all the parties in the world, but just being thankful and grateful that I have survived. And I have had a profession that I've inspired people to follow. Yeah. There are people who look at me and say, I am this because of you.
Yeah.
You know, my child is this because of the path that you chose. And if it is one person that you can touch and make a better person, then purpose has been fulfilled.
Thank you so much. This was everything and then some.
Thank you.
Thank you.